Hello. So I promised more Mauga content, so here's more Mauga content. For the last few hours before Mauga was removed from the game, me and my friend Clifford TBRD, stands for the Big Red Dog, spent the whole time in custom games trying to find rollouts for Mauga with new tech that we found. He was the one that played Mauga in all of the games where he tried to combo the ultimates in last video, and we both saw a lot of potential in using his charge for really dumb shenanigans, so we tried to find a lot of stuff with it, and we discovered a lot of rollouts that you can do to make the character much better that we're going to show off in this video. Specifically, to keep these videos on the shorter side, we're going to be splitting them up in terms of map type, starting with King of the Hill, and then there will also be videos for all of the other map types over the coming days. So to get into it, let's talk about the text that will be used in this video, as well as just kind of developing a glossary of terms so that you'll understand what I'm talking about when I start speaking in wizard spells. So the first thing is jump charging. Sounds exactly what you'd think it would be. Basically, you just jump and you immediately input the charge command so that you charge while you're moving up in the air. It gives you a little bit more height. It is required for some rollouts to work and just makes other ones more consistent, so very useful to get down the timing for. It's literally just jumping and then immediately pressing charge while holding, any directional input that you need to be holding. Now, the next thing that's actually a tech is slope jumping. Since Mauga's charge does not stop when he's running into a wall, if you run into any sloped surface, even if it's very slightly sloped and try to jump, it will actually make him jump much higher than he normally would, letting him get to a much higher location and land up there, as shown in this clip. And then the last big thing to talk about is slope surfing, which I'm sure, as you can guess, involves just jumping onto a slope with your charge and then using the slope to kind of carry your momentum and either maintain your height over a longer distance or possibly gain even more height in specific situations, which you will sometimes see being used. So before we get started, please hit the like button and comment your favorite Mauga rollout that you see, and also subscribe for more videos in the future. There's at least going to be one each map type, and then probably an updated version whenever Mauga releases, because we only had a few minutes on each map, so there's still a lot more unexplored area for rollouts. We specifically just looked at the big parts of maps, like can you make this jump, but as shown in this clip, there's going to be a lot more area to look for, rollouts that just get you behind the enemy team so that you can use your ultimate on their back line, or possibly rollouts just to get out of certain situations that you may commonly find yourself in. And especially if Blizzard ends up changing how his charge works in any way, shape, or form before he releases, that could mean that some jumps no longer work, and there could be new jumps that now work, or you have to find some kind of workaround. So subscribe for more Mauga, and we'll just get right into it, starting with Antarctic Peninsula. Starting with the map sub-level, first we have this jump where you can first get on top of some small barrels behind the wall to get to the top, and then from there you can perform a jumping charge and then time your stomp at the right time to fully make the gap and land on the center high ground. Can potentially be useful if the other team moves up too far, and this allows you to get over them and get behind them so that you can pressure their back line. But in general, it's just a very good showcase of just how much distance that Mauga can travel using his charge. Similarly, from those same barrels, you can climb up them, then you can do a jumping charge over the gap, then angle your run and jump into the window to get to the high ground. And this can be done on both sides of the map, as the maps are symmetrical in their geometry. So if your team takes control of the point, you can use this to get up to the enemy team's high ground. Now, from the same place on top of the boxes, you can also do another rollout where you jump charge across the gap onto the other wall, and then from that you charge off the edge and then jump at the right time to land on the little corner wall. Could be a useful place to play from if the other team doesn't expect it. You could always drop down behind the wall if you're being pressured by the enemy team. So we never got to try it out in the game, so not sure exactly how useful it will be, but still a thing you can do. From there, you can charge and jump across to the other wall, which you can then use a third charge to get onto the enemy team's high ground from. this was one of the first jumps we found, so with how we've improved at doing these and the new things that we found, it might be possible to go all the way across the gap and make the jump to the other team's high ground in only one charge, which would make it pretty useful, but no promises there. We couldn't exactly test it once he got removed from the game. Next up on the labs map, you are able to make this jump from the left side high ground all the way to the high ground sticking out on the right side of the map, and then you are also able to make the jump back. Of course, this means you can also jump to the enemy's high ground on this side of the map, so it can be versatile and very useful. Can also be used as an escape route sometimes if you are playing on that side of the map and need a quick way to get out. That could be your ticket to getting out. Or you could use it to engage on the enemy team's backline if they are playing up there. Because remember that Mauga is immune to all crowd control when he's in his charge, and this carries into his jump to a certain degree. So if you use this to try and cross a gap and get on the other team's backline, if their Ana uses Sleep Dart a little bit too early, it's just not going to do anything. Neither will any, boop or knockback related abilities, will just do nothing if the enemy team supports time it wrong. So that just makes these rollouts even stronger. And then for the last map, Icebreaker, we could not find any major jumps that are something that people could already think of. Now the next map we'll be going to is Busan. Now for Sanctuary, there's a jump here. You could possibly use this to surprise the team at the start of the game. You can also land inside of the window if you time your jump right, but you basically just do a jumping charge off of this railing. If the railing's broken, then it's no longer possible, so it's really a first fight only kind of jump, but it can be a surprising way to engage the enemy team for the first fight. Next up, if you climb up on the lion's head by point, you can actually jump charge and get over this wall. Can be useful if you set up and you know the enemy team is going to go this way, especially because his jump will also stun people if he lands on them. So that could be another way to just surprise the enemy team's backline and get on them. And then next up, for probably the most useful one, is you can go from the point up onto the little bit of high ground that the enemy team has from main by just charging into these slopes, angling yourself towards the opening where the high ground is, and then jumping. You will slope jump up there because any angled surfaces will give you a higher jump for some reason. So by properly angling yourself towards it right before you jump, you are able to actually make the jump all the way up there that you would not normally be able to. Next up for downtown, if you go through the window when you're coming out of spawn, you can actually do a jump charge out of it and then jump in order to get to the high ground in the center. And then once you get your charge back, you can actually do it again to get to the enemy team's high ground at the window. And even just getting to that high ground in the middle could be a very strong position to play from, especially since you can follow it up by jumping on the enemy team's backline and stunning them depending on where they're playing from, or just go take their own high ground on this window. And even if you are on the low ground, you can still get up to the high ground in the center. It's a bit trickier, but it requires standing on this little planter that has the tree in it, then aim yourself right towards the lowest orange part of the platform, do a jump charge, and then try and turn and angle yourself towards directly into the orange platform, and then jumping. And that should in most cases get you up onto the high ground from low ground, which then of course you can do whatever you want from there. You can go to the window high ground on the other team's side or go to it on your side, just whatever you want from this point onwards. Next, for Mecha Base, you are able to make the jump from main all the way to the bridge that's by the point. However, you cannot make the jump back. You can only make the jump over there. Can be useful if there's a Widowmaker or another hero over there harassing your backline. You can just go and jump on them and force them out. The next rollout is if you stand on the little piece of geometry on your side. I don't know what you'd call this, but if you stand up there and then do a jump charge, you can actually jump onto the little cylinder in the center. So you can also take that as high ground if you wanted to and play from up there. Now the last rollout is Easily the coolest one, but also probably has the least useful applications as any of the other ones. But if you go all the way to the side of the map, you can actually jump off the side of the map, aiming towards the bottom of this slope. Then once you're near it, you can start to turn to the right and then actually start going up the slope, and then finish by jumping back onto the map. You could maybe use this trying to escape from a lost fight in the middle of point, or use it to try and get behind the enemy team if they go through bottom path when they're trying to get out. But like, this is more of a useless one that's just kind of really cool, especially from third person. Moving on to the next map of Illios. Lighthouse probably has some of the best ones in the game. If you go to the bridge from rolling out of spawn, you can actually jump charge over this roof and end up on the high ground here. Not a super useful place to play from, but you can actually try and charge off of it and then curve yourself around to get at the enemy team's backline, kind of as a dive of some kind. And of course, you can also jump charge back over the roof and get to the other side. But the big thing is that you can actually use this small fence post to go from your team's high ground and actually jump charge all the way to the lighthouse. And then from there, you can stand on the small potted plant and then jump charge over to the enemy team's high ground. Again, a very useful and strong rotation that you would not expect Mauga to be able to do. But he can, just because of how much distance he is able to get out of his charge. The next thing you can do that's kind of cool is that you can actually run along the edge of the map by sliding against it. Just run across the edge, and then as soon as you get to the point where the wall would push you off, you just kind of run against it, and it will maintain your height a little bit, letting you make it and jump to the other side. And then of course you can also jump charge and then hit this slope to get a little bit more distance, and then jump to get back. Could be useful as an escape tool, but just a fun little jump. Next up, you can actually get back onto point from behind it. You just have to stand on top of these little telescopes, and then you can just jump charge and get back onto point. Next up for ruins, there's only really two useful jumps we were able to find, and it's just that you can jump from, you know, the high ground on your side and then jump to, you know, the right side of point by the bridge. You can jump straight there. From there you can jump across the point completely, or, you know, jump to the enemy side of the map and just go completely around the point. You might think that there's a lot more, especially with, you know, how on each team side of the map is very vertical, but we didn't really look that much into it just because there are already ways for heroes that don't have any mobility at all to just climb up those surfaces and get to the high ground and get to the Widowmaker spot. So we didn't really consider it something that was worth looking into much, especially when we were tight on time. Next up for well, if you go to the right side of your team's high ground, you can actually charge across and get to the high ground behind the windmill. And then of course from there, you can also jump charge across and get to the enemy team's high ground as well and flank behind them. Or of course you can just hold the position on the high ground of the windmill, because it is a very strong position to hold from. In addition, just for fun, you can charge over the pit. You can jump charge it, but you can also, you know, just regularly charge across the pit and time your jump at the right time. It can be useful if people don't expect it. You can just quickly gain distance on them if they're trying to, you know, play on the other side of the pit to give themselves space to work with. And again, especially good since, you know, Mauga has immunity to crowd control while charging, so can't be slept out of it, can't be stunned out of it. It's just kind of guaranteed. Now, after you finish the jump, you are vulnerable to getting knocked off, but I feel like a lot of people are going to panic if you do this to them, and they're going to use their cooldown earlier while you are still immune. So it could be a good tactic that's worth looking into that can work a couple of times before the enemy team catches on, or just, you know, for fun. Some of these you can just do for fun. So the next map we'll be looking at is Lijiang Tower. For Night Market, you can actually climb to the top of the statue here, and then from there you can jump charge and actually land on top of the air conditioning unit and get to the high ground that way. It is a very tight jump that will take some practice to get right, but it can be very useful because you can just use it to get to the enemy team's high ground whenever you feel like it. Then next for Garden, as you might expect, you can just charge and jump and make the gap across the pit that surrounds the point. Really, anywhere you'd want to go, you can make the jump to it, back to it. Just the only limit is your imagination on what you'll be able to do with this. Now, for a really crazy jump, if you go full on to the white room part of the map and go to the high ground, you can actually jump charge and then slope surf up the roof to gain a little bit of height, then go off the end, turn around to get to the other side of the roof, and then finish off on the other team's high ground on their side of White Room. So kind of an insane rollout. Is it practical? Probably not, but still a very cool rollout nonetheless that could just be fun to pull out in quick play. Lastly, for Control Center, if you go to the center of point, you can jump up on this little thing extending out of the center of the point, and then from there you can turn towards the high ground and then jump charge and jump in order to get up there. Alternatively, if you go to, the full high ground where you get the little window overlooking the point, from there you could basically charge to anywhere you want to, but you could also just, jump charge off and then hit the center platform to reset your momentum, and then of course make the jump to the high ground on the other side. And then lastly, as a bit of a risky jump for this map, looking at the enemy team spawn, you can actually jump charge and make this gap to flank the enemy team if you wanted to. And of course, you can also make the jump back from here, but it is much tighter of a jump since if you bump into the side of the support structure, it's going to send you plummeting into the abyss. It is a very tight jump to make, but it is definitely possible. For the next map, we will be moving over to Nepal. On Sanctum, if you go to the mega that's off the side of the map, you can actually make the jumps over to the other team's side of the map by getting on top of either of these little pedestals and then doing a jump charge off of them. Can be very useful as a flank route, and that's mainly it for this map. Of course, if you're on the little bridge, you can charge to point and do whatever you want there, but that's a much easier charge that a lot of people have probably already thought to do. Next up, moving on to Shrine, we actually have some very cool ones. If you start on your team's high ground, you can actually charge towards the roof of this building and then surf off of it while turning to kind of maintain your height, and then you can jump off and get to the high ground on the other side. So that can be a pretty useful rollout to surprise the enemy team and just take their high ground from your own high ground and get behind them and flank. And then of course you can also go back as the maps are symmetrical. Just a very neat rollout that you can do. In addition, if you're on point and you want to take the high ground, you can actually go jump on the little horse statue by the stairs and then do a jump charge off of to land on top of the doorway and then just jump onto high ground from there. So not only can you move from one high ground to the other, you can also just go to the high ground directly from point with a jump charge. And then on Village, aside from the one I showed to demonstrate the different techniques, which honestly isn't that useful because this building has a set of stairs in it that will take you to the same exact place. If you go to the side of the map where there are these gaps and also these wooden planks, you can actually just charge off and then time your jump at the right time to make the gap and go across this way. So that could be a good way to flank without your team, or if you had a team that is also very mobile, they could go across with you and you can kind of go straight to point from there. So it could be useful with the right team setup. Next, moving on to Oasis. The first map, University, you can go on the stairs to the side of point and then actually make the jump to the enemy team's side of the map. Could be useful as a flank route, but also just a cool jump that you could pull out. And if you are wondering, yes, you can actually make the jump to get back It's just one of the tightest jumps that we've tried, and it's probably not even worth it. But yeah, you can jump charge off the side of the map, and you have a very tight window to get your jump out, and you can actually land right at the bottom of the stairs. Probably not that useful, but you know, who knows, maybe someone can find something cool to use it with. Next up, going to City Center. You can just charge off of the jump pad and then cancel your charge midair to land on the high ground in the center of the map, and then you can also jump charge from that high ground and get back up onto the other high ground. So that could be very useful depending on where you want to play from. And then for probably the coolest rollout in the video, especially if you have your ultimate ready, you can jump on the jump pad and then charge towards the enemy spawn. You can then surf up the roof and then finish your jump over it to get on the enemy team's backline while they're moving it. Just the old classic that Reinhardt was able to do. Mauga can do it as well. Except he probably is able to get more value out of it because he just, you know, has an ultimate that can just trap the enemy team's backline in it, and then he can just blow them up with damage. Unfortunately, Gardens we were not able to find any useful rollouts with, aside from, you know, you could technically jump from the center to anywhere else on the map, but not anything specific and useful. Next, for the final King of the Hill map, we have Samoa. If you go to the high ground by the side of the point, you are able to just jump back and forth between each of the team's high ground. Now, for more of an aggressive rollout, you can actually go all the way to the full high ground that overlooks the point, and then jump charge off the window, and then curve yourself towards the enemy team's spawn and actually jump over the wall surrounding point and land on the other side of it. So that could be a good way to just get onto the other team's backline while they're trying to attack a point. Next up on beats, you can make this jump across the point. Not super useful, but still something that you can do to, you know, quickly get across to the other team, especially if their tank is just on point. You can kind of just completely avoid him and jump over his head, and then try to get at his backline. And then the last jump that you can make is here. It requires the railing, so you can only do it a limited number of times. There's probably a way to do it without it, but we were not able to find it in the short amount of time we had to look through each map. But you can just jump off of the railing, charge towards the wall, surf off of it, and then, you know, finish off the jump onto the high ground. And this just gives you a weird flank angle that you can easily attack the enemy team from if they're trying to move through onto point. So yeah, that's all of the different rollouts that we were able to find with our limited time for the King of the Hill maps. There will be more videos for each of the other map types, so please like and subscribe for more Mauga. Some maps have even better rollouts than these ones do. So yeah, please hit the like button for more Mauga, hit the subscribe button for more Mauga, comment your favorite Mauga moment from the video, and yeah, until next time, see ya.